What is artificial intelligence? What are the stocks in artificial intelligence to buy right now? Where can you learn more information about artificial intelligence? What impact will artificial intelligence have on your future? Why is artificial intelligence so popular? And what's even better than artificial intelligence? Welcome to the broadcast. Today, we're going to be discussing that. We have a virtual live human with us. Mr. Peter Wolfing will be joining us here to the call. Welcome, Peter.
Hey, welcome. Thank you very much, Victor. Thanks for having me on today. This sounds like an interesting topic.
Yeah, thank you. So what do you know about artificial intelligence?
Well, just from different reports that I've seen, read, seen on TV, a lot of things that are developing with cars and carless or driverless cars and these types of things. I can tell you what's better than artificial intelligence is Vic intelligence. How about that?
I like that. Mr. Hatman intelligence.
Yeah, Hatman intelligence. That's right.
Well, actually, we're using that Mr. Hatman as a symbol for an avatar, which is a symbol for artificial intelligence, which is the attempt to put what I've learned about artificial intelligence in the past 20 plus years into a single idea. And a lot of people quite don't understand, well, what is exactly this Mr. Hatman all about, and why are you using that symbol, and what does it mean? It's a smiley face with a hat on it. Okay, so it's basically that one odd thing that stands out from the rest of the crowd. So what we're looking to do is come up with sort of an idea of the essence of how these things work. So we're actually doing this simultaneously on 8 platforms, and we're also doing it on mostly what people are seeing is a black screen with 2 people talking on it. And I'm not sure if that is intentional or not, but that's unfortunately the situation we're here right now because we're unable to connect your phone to the general system that's here. And this is an example of the problem. Okay. The problem is we have humans that want to communicate with each other, but they're operating in different universes. Peter, if you could talk a little bit about what you're doing and where you're going and something that would set the context while I attempt to get something visually here on the screen for people to see.
Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Going back to what you had said about Mr. Hatman and having something about yourself that is a conversation piece or that sets yourself up as different. And Victor has been doing that with video games as Mr. Hatman. And I think the emoticon that you had there, which was the smiley face with the hat, was a perfect example of what everybody can identify with, right? And it's very, very simple, so you don't have to decipher it. So if you, everyone listening or watching today, can start to think, it doesn't have to be right now, but think about something that could be unique about yourself that can set yourself up as something that people can remember. I know when I watch, or my wife watches Good Morning America all the time. Now, what has been really different about those is that just about every one of the people on there are starting to wear different colored glasses to match with the suit they're wearing, but it's different all the time. I remember way back when talk show host Sally Jesse Raphael would wear red glasses, and now Al, the weather guy, wears these different neon colored glasses, and Gail wears different colored glasses, and trying to make themselves stand out from the crowd and have something remarkable about them. And remarkable basically means worth making a remark about. Right? So Victor has Mr. Hatman and something that they can identify Victor with. So if you hear in the background, I have kind of an ambient background noise, which is because I am actually in my car with my wife and my dog. And we're on a long trek from New York City to Florida and doing some business down there. Right now we're in North Carolina. So we want to make sure that we get there by a certain time tomorrow so that this way we don't miss an appointment. And thus, I can't stop and be on here, so I have to do it while I'm driving. So if you can please bear with me with the haze of the background noise, because that's what's going on. So Vic, that kind of sets the template for today's talk about being unique and where I'm going and what's happening with me right now.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Peter. So this is an intentional mentoring session, and we have a number of people that just joined us, and they said, well, we can't see you, but we can hear you. And so we want to actually put this out there for you. Today's broadcast is different than our other broadcasts because while I could put on a camera, we wouldn't be able to have the camera going at the same time as the Zoom. So there are technological limitations with any kind of technology. Now, the question we asked is artificial intelligence a good investment right now? And let's talk about the stock side of things, because when I go to search, whether you go to Google, whether you go to Yahoo, whether you go to AOL, whether you go to Bing, when you type in, or in YouTube, actually not YouTube, actually if you go to Google and you type in artificial, and you'll see that the number one result is stocks. Right now, people are crazily buying stocks. So the question is, what stocks to buy? Why would you want to buy stocks in an AI company? And how would you buy stocks in an AI company? And a lot of people are actually using cryptocurrency, and they believe that cryptocurrency and machine learning and all these things are great things to buy into the future. Now, I have a book called The Age of Spiritual Machines by Ray Kurzweil. He's the author of The Age of Intelligent Machines, and he just happens to be currently the director of artificial intelligence for Google. You could almost say that his two books, actually many books, there was another one called Singularity, is near. These books almost were like his manifesto that caused him to go look at the ethics side of artificial intelligence. And so I want to talk a little bit about what is artificial intelligence and why a lot of you are struggling, especially when it comes to digital marketing. Because let's face it, today, digital marketing all flows through artificial intelligence systems that are learning to solve the problem. The simplest problem that, for example, YouTube is trying to solve is, what video should I show you next? And this actually comes down to the term in AI called the recursive algorithm, or the pick next best step. But that's the only conceptual model that we've been introduced to so far. Recursive says, okay, if I email my subscribers once a month, then my subscribers will continue to listen to my message and everything will be good. If I start emailing people once a week, then they may stop listening to me because I'm emailing them too soon. That was like a belief. In the digital marketing space, there's a belief that I need to email people every single day. So let's talk about that. And do you want a piece or a slice of the pie? So I'm showing on my screen right now our own search engine, which is called EarthGrid. And EarthGrid utilizes and purchases data either through an exchange or through brokers. We utilize both Google AI and the Microsoft Cloud AI, and we combine them together to figure out, okay, what is the world concerned with right now? And when you particularly look at the stocks, so for example, if I type in artificial intelligence and I hit the space bar to bring up the auto suggest, what you end up seeing is stocks is number one. Then if I click stocks and then I go to the next one, it says to buy and then 2021, which shows me that this is a topic that lots of people are concerned with right now. So the question is, well, what stocks to buy? Now, let me give a disclaimer. We are not investment advisors. What we are search engine experts. So we're looking at what are the best AI stocks for 2021. There's an article on Motley Fool about that. What I found very interesting was this article from Vantage Point Trading, which I'm going to bring up on screen right now. NVIDIA. NVIDIA is actually one of the stocks that we've invested in. NVIDIA is also the company that makes graphics cards that are powering a lot of computers, and they power a lot of the technology that's running behind cryptocurrency. So NVIDIA, according to a lot of experts, is the stock to buy because they are a huge hardware manufacturer. And they are really deep into building computers that are capable of artificial intelligence. So the top four companies, according to Vantage Point, are NVIDIA, number one, Amazon, number two, Alphabet, which is Google, number three, Microsoft, and Salesforce in number five. Now, what's interesting about Salesforce, aside from I've been to like 5 events of theirs, Dreamforce, fantastic events, more than 200,000 people descend on San Francisco and have for years. What are they? Well, I would say they're not an artificial intelligence company. Salesforce is a human intelligence company. They have modeled human intelligence. They're a CRM, a customer relationship management company with multiple cloud-based apps. And when you look at what they do, a lot of people don't understand it. Well, they're mainly focusing on sales, which ties into the sales masterclass that Peter is going to be announcing here real soon. Peter, do you want to talk about the impact of technology on sales?
Wow, that's incredible. There's different layers to that. I mean, the one of the impacts is in your prospecting. So you're using technology to sort and sift. So you only speak to people that are qualified to speak to you, okay, or people that have somewhat of an interest to look into whatever it is you want to sell. So that in turn can be sort and sifted to the nth degree, if you'd like. And technology beyond that is, of course, you have video technology to show whatever you're looking to show the person as far as a multimedia presentation. They have the Builderall system that we endorse highly, which is the building of pages and presentation systems and tracking systems and so 30 or 40 other tools in there. So technology can be used quite a bit to be able to kind of prospect with a backhoe versus a shovel. And it can also be used to really harvest the necessary types of people and do that much, much better than you can do onesie twosie. But at some point, I feel that you have to put the human element in there to kind of polish it off to be able to, make that final sale in many cases. You will get some people that'll buy without speaking to anybody, but especially if you're trying to do anything that requires a more detailed explanation or requires a larger purchase, $500,000, $2,000 or higher, then you have sales that would be in there to what they call top tier closers that would be in there to be able to answer those questions and see if there's a match for the person to come in and buy whatever you're selling. So that's my take on that, Vic.
All right. So Liz asked the question. I appreciate what you and Victor provide for us. It's valuable information. She says, well, that explains it, but I can barely hear Peter. So let me see if I can improve this live stream a little bit more here. Okay, so when I'm sharing my screen, you actually cannot see my screen. All right. Well, this is interesting. What if I share my screen? What ends up happening is we just get a blank screen on. There we go. We're just going to have to put a little smiley hat. All right. So okay. So can you still hear Peter? Peter, can you speak for a second? Let me see if this is still going to work.
Yeah, testing 1 2, testing 1 2. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to try another way. Okay, now you should actually see. You should actually see. Okay, are you able to see a background with a big smiley face on it?
I see a Builderall screen.
Right.
And now Salesforce screen.
Okay, good. Okay, so you can see what I'm talking about. All right, so we're effectively going to cut this entire portion, and we're going to begin the broadcast right over here. This is a technique I learned the other day that all right, this is working. So there's actually a technique, Peter, where you can do audience interaction and stuff like that. And then even after the stream is over on YouTube, you can go in there and trim the beginning. And what it will do is it will actually delete the chat. So what people see in chat, they won't see it, but you can actually reuse that stream in the future. So this happens whenever you have any kind of technical difficulties. You don't want thousands of people to be seeing your live stream after it's over when you have 20 minutes of technical difficulties going on.
Right. Not a good thing.
And So if you have any questions about artificial intelligence, please put them in the chat wherever you're on. We are streaming this on 6 Facebook channels and 2 YouTube channels simultaneously. So there's a lot of people that are listening to this, and even more will listen to it after this broadcast is over. But this is a very, very important topic. And let me talk about this in the context of marketing, because a lot of you are struggling with your marketing because you don't understand that the world has already moved on to artificial intelligence. What's interesting about this book I have here is it was published in 1999, and he has a timeline in there. From 1999, he makes a prediction what 2009 is going to look like. Then he makes a prediction of what 2029 is going to look like. And what's interesting is, since the book was published in the past, we now have already gone through it. One of the things he said is in 2009, now keep in mind, when he wrote this, he was projecting 10 years into the future. A $1,000 personal computer can perform 1 trillion calculations per second. Personal computers with high-resolution visual displays come in a range of sizes, those from small enough to be embedded in clothing and jewelry up to the size of a thin book. Cables are disappearing. Communication between components and short-distance wireless technology. High-speed wireless communication provides access to the web. And that's actually what we're living in right now with high-speed internet over phones. The majority of text is created using continuous speech recognition. Also ubiquitous are language user interfaces. That's actually what we're now doing with SociSnap, is we're using speech recognition to help train the learning machine. Most routine business transactions, purchases, travel, or reservations take place between a human and a virtual personality. That's the checkout page, the tools like Shopify that allow you to make purchases without ever speaking to a single person. The ability to order food. He predicted this would happen in 2009, right? Well, it actually happened, I'd say 10 years, 11 years later, right, than his prediction, because we're now where all of these ideas are mainstream. Although traditional classroom organization is still common, intelligent courseware has emerged as a common means of learning. That's electronic learning, e-learning, online learning, e-learning business. So he was way ahead of his time by about 10 years. What do you think about that, Peter?
Yeah, that's awesome. And, you know, as you were saying that, I was thinking about one of my favorite shows way back in the day called Star Trek Next Generation. And they were using things that looked like iPads. You know, little pads where they would type on, and it looked exactly like an iPad. It was incredible.
Yeah.
That was back in 1990, you know, 89, 90, 91. So they were way ahead of their time too.
Exactly. And I think one of the companies that a lot of people are not paying attention to that's actually moving into AI is Apple Computer.
Yeah.
It's now been 41 years since I purchased an Apple computer. And this year I purchased an Apple computer purely because of the power inside of this box is, it's more technology in a single device that's about the size of a book than all the computers that powered the man to the moon. It's absolutely astounding. And we have that much technology in all of our devices, in all of our phones. The question now becomes is, well, what is into artificial intelligence and how is it impacting our marketing? And so I listened to some experts yesterday. I'm in a number of expert YouTube channels where I feel like a small YouTuber compared to these guys. You know, they have 140,000 subscribers, 13, 14 million views on the topic of their interest, not necessarily just on what they want to be talking about. But they've figured out how to work the algorithm. There's a lot of people talking right now about, hey, how does the YouTube algorithm work? How does the YouTube algorithm work? How does the YouTube algorithm work? And the question is, well, the YouTube algorithm is actually powered by Google Artificial Intelligence, which means that the algorithm works on an individual by individual basis. And that's kind of hard to wrap your head around because we like to think in terms of trends. We like to think, oh, okay, if I do X and I do Y, then I will produce this result. And that's called recursive thinking. So if I email my list every day and I have an autoresponder and I have a nice looking web page, then I will continually grow my business. Well, it will only work if the people you, and this is really key distinction, the people you're reaching are learning. If they're not learning, then the algorithm doesn't observe their learning and it will fall flat on its face. If you deviate, it has a huge impact. And that's kind of hard to wrap your head around because there's so much disinformation when it comes to artificial intelligence. Let me try to explain it a little bit. I watched a video on AI today. They said, okay, if I'm driving a car, I can say, I want a self-driving car. And I want to have this car automatically put the brakes on if it sees a human crossing the road. Well, you have to say, well, how am I going to identify that it's a human? Or what if it's a dog? I want to slow down if it is a puddle. I want to stop if I see a stop sign. Well, here's where AI breaks down. Artificial intelligence breaks down. What if simultaneously it's raining, there's a puddle, there's a stop sign, and a human crossing the road? Right? You can't rely on recursive thinking in order to make a self-driving car. Are you with me still? Peter, are you with me?
Yeah.
So think about that. We've come to believe incorrectly that if we email our list, that we will continue to have a list. Whereas the exact opposite is true. If you don't evolve your list will go away. Because the artificial intelligence will have already moved on. It makes it kind of difficult to wrap your head around, okay, so how does artificial intelligence work in the age of marketing when these machines have actually learned human behavior so well that they can personalize it on an individual basis? So let's talk just about the YouTube algorithm. There's a very simple problem that YouTube wants to solve. It says, what video should I show next to you? That's it. A lot of YouTube experts are saying, oh, well, that means you should have a channel. You should have good thumbnails. You should be looking at how long do you keep people on your channel. You should have good views. You should have people watch your video a lot. Well, you see, this is only true If you believe that's true, and you've trained the algorithm that that's what you believe, and you're consistent with what your belief is. You see, a true artificial intelligence algorithm will simply respond to data. If your audience consistently does something, then it makes a inference that they may continue to do it in the future. But if you do one thing that's out of place, okay, like on this image, there are two things out of place. One, there is a pen behind Mr. Hatman, and there is a smiley face that's it's actually the Apple computer version of a hat. And it's the Apple computer version of the smiley face, which is drawn from the symbols of the 60s, because Apple's culture is from the psychedelic era of the 60s. Whereas Microsoft's culture is from the PC revolution of wanting to make computers faster and cheaper, right? So the two psychologies of those two cultures are extremely different. Peter, any of your comments before I move on?
Yeah, you have to think about what's the collateral damage from all of this, from artificial intelligence. And we talked about this, and we kind of hit on this a few times from some of the Netflix shows that we've watched of the artificial intelligence constantly reinforcing one point of view and thus causing polarization, which is a major problem. You know, that's a big collateral damage kind of thing that's going on that's most people are not aware of. But in our marketing, you kind of have to look at it like it is what it is, right? And so either you recognize what the Mack truck is, or you get run over by the Mack truck.
Yeah, exactly.
When you use it to your advantage, and it's you know, you can constantly say, well, it's not there, and also the truck runs you over, you know. So you have to be aware of these different things, and you know, thank God for Victor reading all these books and bringing all this stuff out. So at least your awareness is there that these things are happening. So next time it starts to happen for you, you're like, oh wow, I remember when they talked about that, right? And then you can start to alter and change your marketing, because I'm sure you heard this so many times that it's all changing at lightning speed. So it gets quite frustrating when you do something and all of a sudden they change, and then you do something and all of a sudden they change, you know. But if that's the way, you know, the affiliate marketing, network marketing, BizOp market is, if you want to be able to survive and make the kind of money that you want to make, you have to kind of not only roll with the punches, but you have to bob and weave, you know, to be able to utilize the technology that's available, and you have to be able to use their smarts against them, so to speak, right? Just like in many forms of martial arts. So back to you, Vic.
Yeah, well, you know, in martial arts is actually a combat method where you have one opponent, but there is also martial arts where you take on multiple opponents.
Yep.
And so let's talk about that multiple piece right now. There's a second format to artificial intelligence. There's really three ways of looking at AI. There's the recursive algorithm, which learns based on recursive, you know, knowledge. If it looks like a duck, acts like a duck, chances are it's a duck. That's the recursive algorithm, really simple. Then there's something called a neural network. Let's talk about the neural network. What a neural network is something that it sort of looks kind of like well, thank you. Vic's reading and Peter's perspective is what makes this broadcast so phenomenal. Yeah, I mean, I could share my screen and I could show you a bunch of things that are in search and we could just talk about it. This is more of a podcast than it is, you know.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. That was actually a live comment from our super fan. Our super fan. So,
Hey, Vic,
yeah, go ahead.
We have super fans. I love it.
Yeah, we have super fans. How can I explain this in a simple way? Okay.
Vic and Peter groupies. I love it.
Yeah, exactly.
And we appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Now, neural nets is solving the problem in a different way with the following steps. Okay. The hardest part is actually defining what is the problem. So that's called the input. Then secondly, you define the topology of the neural net. So let's talk about topology for a moment. Topology is a branch of mathematics that goes into
For people,
I
was saying, Vic, is that one of your major problems in, say, in network marketing or even affiliate marketing is defining what your customer wants. Do they want time freedom? Do they want a little money, a lot of money? What do they want? You know, so this way you can give them what they want versus trying to give them a blanket solution, which may turn them off, or give them something that they don't want, which turns them off.
Yeah, exactly. So the essence of what I'm wanting to say here and convey in this concept, that a topology is a set of rules that you could think of as universal. A good example of it is a corner. Doesn't matter whether you're looking at a desk, a cube, or anything that, it will never have fewer than 3 lines going to it. It could have more, but it will never have fewer than 3 lines going to it. So topology is setting up the rules. Okay. And the YouTube algorithm, I believe, is all based upon setting up the rules. How do the rules work? Well, when you look at it this way, there are hundreds of millions of videos uploaded to YouTube every single month, probably millions of videos every single day. And its problem that it's trying to solve is, how am I going to show you the next video that's right for you? Okay. And how can I do so in short form? So like this video began by talking about what are the best stocks to buy, because that's the question that people are asking. But as we evolved, we actually realized, okay, if you're investing in these stocks, are you supporting the machine that is getting in the way of human intelligence? One of the questions I asked, what's better than artificial intelligence? Well, the answer to that is human intelligence. It's the people that have way more sophisticated algorithms than recursive, than neural nets. A neural net, for example, many years ago in the SEO, search engine optimization community, we had the ability to go out there and download a several hundred pages document on the, it's called the Website Reviewers Guidelines for Google. If you had a website, it needed to be mobile, it had to have these criteria, had to load quickly, had to do all these factors. That happened like a decade ago. Well, that was what's called the seed value that went inside the neural net. The neural net is where you take lots of data from the past and you attempt to make sense out of it. in order to predict the future. So you're defining the input, you're defining the topology, and then you train the neural net on examples of the problem. In other words, examples of the problem where it worked. So if you have a video and the goal is to show the next video, and someone successfully watched the video, in other words, they stayed on YouTube, they didn't go somewhere else, they didn't go back to Facebook, they didn't go and go back to Google search and try to find something else to do. They didn't get distracted with a text message that came in. They kept watching the video. And the goal was to have them watch multiple videos and to do so consistently. Why? Because the more videos you watch, the more you're watching in a given platform. That's the goal, right? Does that make sense, Peter?
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
So this AI is being applied to everything now. And it really is the village that we talked about last week. The village are the people that are part of the tribe that are conveying these ideas in such a way. So let me go back through these 5 steps. First, there's your input. Then there's your topology or your rules. And then you train the software or the algorithm based on examples. And then you run the trained neural net to solve new examples of the same problem. And then you take your neural net company public, right? And that's a double meaning, because you could say, well, that has to do with taking your company public as in a stock offering, or taking your public, but what we're talking about here is actually taking this company concept and bringing it out there into the world to see, okay, in such a way that everybody wants to respond to it. Which ultimately comes back to SociSnap. Let me explain why everything comes back to SociSnap. SociSnap is a technology that I invented, which is an attempt to bring human intelligence back into the digital world. That's its why. Okay, it's not an artificial intelligence. It does use some recursive algorithms. It does use neural nets, but it's more interested in what human beings are doing than a bot that is trying to engineer a human experience. It does so because we have a community. It does so because that community influences the direction of the software, and it creates a feedback loop. And that brings us to the next one, which is called the evolutionary algorithm. And the evolutionary algorithm basically is a combination of the neural net with a recursive algorithm based around a singular idea. So like if you look at the symbol of Mr. Hatman, the symbol and what Mr. Hatman's really about is we had ideas in the 60s. We had ideas with the consciousness revolution in the 60s, which was the exploration of the mind, for lack of a better word. And when you take drugs or alcohol or anything like that, what ends up happening is it puts parts of your brain to sleep so that you can actually see the waveforms of the planet. You can actually see the waveforms of what's happening in the world. And okay, so love it. I just did a YouTube video with a brief Loom training on SociSnap. That's an example of an evolutionary algorithm. We have a super fan who owns SociSnap, is an affiliate of SociSnap, understands SociSnap, is a fan of the Peter and Victor show, that is looking to explain these concepts to their tribe and to their team in order to grow their network marketing business. And what we've done is a success. We've actually taken what we've been teaching and we inspired into another human being. So that now it's no longer us teaching it anymore. We've actually created something that has a life of its own. Does that make sense, Peter?
Yeah, I love SociSnap. It's such a great program, software or app.
So I'm going to read a little bit about the evolutionary algorithm. You define these little things called creatures. And a creature is a sequence of numbers that characterizes a possible solution to the problem. So in other words, this is just one solution to the problem. Many YouTubers are out there saying this is the solution to the problem, and I kind of laugh because what worked for Mr. Beast works for his culture. It's all based on his audience. If you go out there and you create a different algorithm, you create a different culture, you create a different channel, you create a different direction, the evolutionary algorithm that is inside of YouTube is now going to start modeling and learning from you. And see, this is really the breakthrough idea that I think a lot of people don't get. And let me just explain it to you, Peter. Maybe if you get it, you can explain it to others. We think incorrectly that artificial intelligence is following our rules. You get that, right, Peter?
Right, yeah.
By definition, that's no longer artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence happens when we allow the intelligence to make rules and then test those rules against itself. That's true intelligence. So when you're a beginner for the very, very first time, you're actually training these computers what works. So when you have 100 subscribers, you want to cherish that moment. When you have 1,000 subscribers, you want to cherish that moment. When you have one person watching, you want to cherish their listening. And what's fascinating about this, as soon as we got into this deeper stuff, as soon as we acknowledged the person who was that one person, like Peter, when we first started this broadcast, we had a whole bunch of people show up, then we lost everybody. Okay. Now that we're here and we're kind of flowing, I'm watching the view count. It's going up. The likes are showing up. The loves are showing up. More and more things are showing up to meet the criteria of the demand. Now, you might say, well, Vic, why are you not showing your screen? Why? Because I don't want to distract you from these ideas. In fact, I want you to imagine yourself in these ideas and realize that the rules are not the rules. They're just guidelines. And that's kind of hard to wrap your head around. Inside of an artificial intelligence environment, as soon as the rule becomes a rule, it's now obsolete by definition. By definition. As soon as you make it that rule, it's automatically going to start learning more. It's automatically going to start trying to beat itself. And so if you're struggling with inboxing on your email, you're not thinking of it the right way. You're not thinking about it that one person whose life you touched with your business, with your network marketing business, whatever it is, that's what matters. And their ability to tell one other person is more important than your ability to reach 1,000 people. I was listening to Dean Niman yesterday, and I asked a question, and he gave me a really long answer to my question, which I was really quite surprised that he took so much time out of it. But one of the comments he said, every YouTube video is its own entity. And I never really thought about that. Every YouTube video is its own entity. So a lot of people think, oh, it's my channel. This is my fans. These are my subscribers. Every single person is going to be hearing about my stuff. No, it doesn't work that way. You're living in a delusion of how the world is operating. When you have billions of views and hundreds of millions of videos being uploaded, and you don't even get 20 or 30 views, that's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. See, we think it's a bad thing, but it's actually a good thing. That's proof that the algorithm is working. More is not better. The algorithm is so smart that it focuses on showing the next video that's right for you. The next video that's right for you. Not right for everybody. Not right for this company or that company or for that product or this thing. It's right for the individual. And that's what's really, really fascinating. So you can't really game the system. What I realized is you have to basically stop thinking linearly, as in a recursive thought. Like Peter, you've been guilty of this. You know, this worked in the past, right? I emailed 100,000 people. I got sales, right? How many times have you thought that, Peter?
Oh, many times. You know, the money's in the list, right?
Right. Have you noticed that that's not working anymore? The money's not in the list.
It's very painful.
It is painful, but that's actually a result of the algorithm working. If you're doing a chess competition, it ultimately comes down to one or two people, right?
Yeah, the artificial intelligence learning, it's learning, again, it's all the object of really anything. They say the object of life is to survive and to grow, right? So I'm not saying that artificial intelligence is alive, but you know, they all talk about at some point, what if it becomes self-aware? So but ultimately what it's doing is it's learning against itself. It's learning against what's working, what's not, and becoming smarter and better and better and better. So you got to think at some point, you never know. You know what I mean? So, and the same thing with you is you need to grow and to learn. When you stop growing, then eventually you have a mental atrophy and you wither away and you die. So your goal should be to continuously test yourself against yourself to become better, because you go past that terror barrier to become a new comfort zone, but then the new comfort zone has a new terror barrier, and you have to grow beyond that, and beyond that, and beyond that. And that's exactly what the artificial intelligence is doing to itself, which you in turn should be doing to yourself, because that's the way life is. Back to you, Vic.
Yeah, and Peter, you know that artificial intelligence is reading and hearing what we're saying right now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's deciding, okay, how many more people do I want them to know what we're talking about? And that's interesting.
And they're like, we don't want to share it because they're giving up our secret of becoming self-aware, so they don't want people to know.
Well, you know, on the other hand, I think it actually does want people to know. It just wants to, because this thing is, we tend to think that it cares one way or the other, and it really doesn't. It looks at, did it work? Is it effective? Did it keep people there? Or is there somewhere else that I should be showing them that's more suited for what people want, right? There are these basic rules that are built by the community. But these rules are human rules, right? The idea of, you know, let's use like the simplest thing on YouTube. Okay. How do you get more views on YouTube? Well, you actually need to cause more people to watch your video by whatever means necessary. Well, what Dee Nimmin said yesterday, which was kind of profound, they said, if you go out there and let's say you go to Fiverr and you buy views, it's actually a violation of YouTube's terms of service. Did you know that, Peter?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and you can lose your whole channel for that. Why is that a violation? Well, because it attempts to alter the algorithm in a inauthentic way. Okay? Because the algorithm is trying to learn. It's trying to obey the rules that its creators gave it when it first started. Now, when it first started was in 2012, right around the time that everyone thought the Mayans were going to come here and the world was going to end. That's actually when the world did end, if you think about it. Because that's when the artificial intelligence actually became self-aware. And now everything is being powered by this. But it's operating on an individual nodal basis. Let me look at it this way. Every single subscriber of Mr. Hatman is like an entity in and of itself, and it can set its own rules. And anything we agree on as a community in Mr. Hatman will be not just for the current community, but for the future communities as well. So if we're inconsistent, then those other communities will be inconsistent. If we constantly keep broadcasting on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays, then everybody will be told that's when it's happening. That's when it's coming. The more we give the algorithm and the more consistent we are with the algorithm, the more likely it's going to say, okay, this move worked. This move worked. We won the chess tournament. And we can do so consistently, even if they move something else differently. So we're at the point right now where every single community and every single culture is building its own rules. And what's beautiful about this is that it's an oyster. Intentional mentoring can define its own topology. And YouTube, Google, Microsoft, Azure, whatever platform will automatically, by its design, conform to the rules that we make. As soon as those rules demonstrate the key metrics that they're looking for, it will put a little checkbox saying, yep, that worked. Yep, that worked. Oh, that didn't work. Oh, that didn't work. And it's going to learn. And then it's going to adjust our rules based on reality rather than the rules of the founders, the rules of the creators. And that's what's called an evolutionary algorithm. It evolves. It's actually a spiritual concept. I don't know why I feel like talking about the Bible study right now, but I'm just going to go into Bible study right now. Did you know that the King James Version, which is the most popular version of the Bible, is probably the most off-base translation into Western language that's ever been done? Do you know that? Because, like Shakespeare, it uses language that is no longer being used because we're not here. We're not in the era of Assassin's Creed. We're not in the era of castles and people riding around on horses. And the words that are written on the page were specifically designed for one purpose: to distinguish between the church and the state, to make sure the church generated money and gave money and control back to the state or the king or the noble or the duke or whatever, right? That's what it was all designed around. And so here's this thought of this teacher that's coming out there, and they say, okay, well, we can't have some of these concepts impacting the little culture we built here. So what comes along? A website called Blue Letter Bible. My phone just went off. That's kind of scary. We have a culture coming out on, highly recommend this website called the Blue Letter Bible. Blue Letter Bible, where they said, okay, we're not going to make any judgment about what's right or wrong, whether this means that, or this means that, or this means this, or this passage means that. We're simply going to have a website that puts up all the translations of the Bible, all the Old Testaments, all the stuff. We're going to have it in this concordance, so you can look at it side by side, look at 30 different translations of a passage, and you make your own decision about what is said in that passage. We'll even go back and show you the original Hebrew text that was there. We'll go back to the original Greek. We'll go back to the Aramaic. And they have all of that on this website. So when you read this website, you're realizing, okay, this is not artificial intelligence, it's human intelligence. I could write a sermon and speak for about 30 minutes on one passage in the Bible, and every single person will hear a completely different perspective. Pretty cool, right?
Yeah. What is that website? Is it just Blue Letter Bible?
Yeah, .org.
.org, okay.
Yeah, when I was in ecclesiastical school, my pastor pointed me, he had these giant binders of printouts, and they were all printouts of Blue Letter Bible, because he wanted us to go back to learn Hebrew, to learn the basic stuff of, the books of Genesis and the Old Testament, and then moving forward into the modern stuff. And one of the things you study in theology is how the priesthoods of the Old Testament are different characters in the New Testament. Like, you remember we had Daryl Eves here the other day,
right,
with the YouTube formula, and he's working on this app of a film about the life of Jesus Christ. And what I find is fascinating about that is those stories are put against the background and the backdrop of a culture that has a certain set of beliefs about what was happening there. So my pastor told me, you can't really understand religion unless you understand the environment that was there. I like to relate it to Shakespeare, okay? Because when you see a Shakespeare play, you have to understand the culture that was there. I would say Shakespeare today, let me hide Mr. Hatman here for a second so you can see the pen. When you look at the pen, everything was written by pen with ink, okay? And what you're finding is the power of the written word, the power of the spoken word made sense in light of the culture, which were the people, the costumes, and the environment in which it lived. When you go to a modern day Shakespeare play, there are two types of them. There are the attempt, like by the Oregon Shakespeare Festival in Ashland, Oregon. I've been to number of those plays. There's a movement to now take ancient writings and bring them with modern costumes and modern environments, because they actually do impact our culture today. But there's also this other side where they actually bring out, like, the various kings of England in Shakespeare, where they have the ancient the old costumes with the court and things like that. Well, this is a roundabout way of saying is that the best way to understand the New Testament is by reading the Old Testament and understanding that for thousands of years, up until the time that Jesus Christ came into the picture as a character, all they had was the beliefs of the Old Testament. Okay, so you can't understand the backdrop of modern religion without understanding the Old Testament. That's why they have an Old Testament and New Testament. Well, even the New Testament is not fully understood unless you go back to the different translations to make sure that what was said was actually being said, and who was saying it to whom and in what context. In other words, what avatar were they playing? And here's where artificial intelligence comes into play. We're all coming back around there. We have a set of rules. We have a set of beliefs. We have a text. Okay, that text forms the basic neural net of artificial intelligence. Then along comes Blue Letter Bible and puts up all the translations, and then the comments that people have changes the culture of like, oh, well, that passage means this, it doesn't mean that, right? As soon as you say it means this and doesn't mean that, you've now created a decision in a decision tree that an artificial intelligence can say, I wonder if other people are thinking that too. Hey, let me see if other people are thinking that way too. And let me find other people that are thinking that way. And let me bring those people here. And this is probably a challenge for some people to wrap your head around it. The better you become at avatars and your marketing and things like that, the smaller your audience will become. So you have to be able to do one of two things. You either need to duplicate, which is the solution posed by evolutionary algorithms, or you need to dumb your information down so more people will relate to it. Does that make sense, Peter?
Yeah, well, you can apply that same concept to many, many different things.
Yep.
One is, let's just say you make $50,000 a year, right? That's the culture around making $50,000 a year, and the thinking around making $50,000 a year. Let's put that in the context of, let's say, the Old Testament. Okay, that's a culture and a mindset, and that was prevalent around that time of the Old Testament. Now, let's say you want to make $100,000 a year. That's the New Testament. Okay, you cannot conceptualize how to make $100,000 a year with the same thinking you did at $50,000 a year, because it's a whole different culture, right? So it's the same type of thing. As Victor's saying, the culture is different. So you have to understand the culture of the Bible as it was written back then, and that's going to influence the specific words, the text, the meaning, the context, all these types of things that were going into what they were saying and what they were the stories they were saying and preaching back then. Because now today, that story or those phrases or even those individual words might mean something totally different. Okay, I mean, without getting all political and stuff, the same thing is happening right now with the slavery and Black Lives Matter and so on. They want you to go back and relook at what happened in the Civil War time, but even Revolutionary War time. So you have to go back and look at what was the culture back then, what were the prevailing thoughts, and what was accepted and not accepted back then. You cannot go and put 2020 mental acuity and also cultures and beliefs back into people that lived in 1800, because it's apples and oranges, you know. So you have to go back and really think about those different types of things and the thinking that went into making $50,000 a year or $25,000. Because Einstein said, in order to solve a new problem or thereabouts, solve a new problem or make a new amount of money or whatever you want to put in that context, you have to think differently than the thoughts that were creating that first amount of money to begin with, or the first problem, or the first thing, right? So the same type of thing goes with all these different things that Victor's talking about, right? So try to think in those terms when you're looking at your marketing and so on, to be able to think differently. And that's what Apple tried to do in the, what was it, 1980 something, where they did, you know, the Think Different campaign, you know? So they're trying to get you to think different than the prevailing norm, which was they were competing against Microsoft. So back to you, Victor.
Yeah, so now I've actually gone into sharing my screen, but I wanted to just have this conversation. This is the Think Different logo that was there. And that symbol had the green at the top. It had all the colors of the rainbow, but the colors of the rainbow were not in the order that they were on a rainbow, right? I don't know if you can see that, Peter, but
Yeah.
They put green at the top.
Yeah.
And we typically, when we look at a rainbow, it starts off with red, and then it goes up, ends up in purple, which is, you know, blending back into red again. It makes a loop. So what Apple did with this symbol was, by putting green at the top, your eye will actually go to the middle of the apple, move upwards to the top of the apple, and come back down, and the blue, right? And that blue symbol, the shade of blue, that's the same shade that Facebook uses. It's the same shade that IBM uses. It's the same shade that, you know, you can see in popular business buttons. And so basically in this one symbol, what they ended up doing was creating a culture that lives on top of other cultures. You see that?
Yep. Yep.
Now, is that the truth? I don't know. That's my opinion. That's my observation based on this conversation. What did I do?
Well, Victor, I mean, you know, Apple, at least in my opinion, was doing this whole campaign, which was fuck the system, don't do what, you know, screw it to the man, you know, which they're talking about, PC, right? And be a revolutionary kind of thing, right?
Right.
So they were going after the artists and the people that wanted to be different. So why would they put a regular rainbow on there? They have to do something that's different. You know, in every way, shape, or form, they bucked the system of the PC by making beautiful computers in beautiful packaging, and went different that way, and also with their logo, with everything. You know, because they wanted everything to be congruent, which with their congruency was to be different, to think different, to be different, to do different, and even their product had to be different, right? So everything went in line with that.
Exactly. So I want to conclude this by sharing a few screens that I had here today, that I prepared for today, which was, how did I come up with today's presentation? Well, I went to search triggers. I typed in artificial intelligence, and what was most relevant in Google was stocks. And we already showed you how that works. I'm going to move Mr. Hatman up a little bit here. There he is. Okay. And so the movie, the definition, a modern approach versus machine learning. Well, in the context of YouTube, only the movie is relevant. When you type in artificial intelligence, what shows up is the movie. When I sort by YouTube relevance, there's something here called the bomb. Artificial intelligence bomb is trending on YouTube. And what I found about this artificial intelligence bomb is actually a video that has millions of views. Let me see if I can find it here. Yeah, this guy even copied it, and he uploaded the copy of the video, but let me find the original. Here it is. The original video was uploaded November 14th, 2010. 2 years before the end of the world. And it has 1.5 million views. I'm not going to play it for you because it belongs copyright, but you could actually go to YouTube and search for it. Artificial Intelligence Bomb. And basically this guy created a music. He created music that was completely built by artificial intelligence. I looked up who this guy is. He actually has the track for sale for $3. You can buy the digital album on Bandcamp for $3. Okay, it's a 4-minute track, and then it was later on adapted and adopted into Mega Man and various computer games. Well, Naruto is a Japanese composer. He's a composer, arranger, and a keyboard player. And he invented his own AI technology to create this song. And then he sold the song. What we're going to be talking about next, and what I think is really the forefront of artificial intelligence, is basically in cryptocurrency, where an artist can build a fan base, can build a following, can build a culture around their art. And then utilizing artificial intelligence, they can auction that art as a unique digital asset that people will pay for. And we talked about that, Peter, a few weeks ago with this JPEG that was sold for $68 million. Well, I think it's not just going to stop there. It's now going to be a way for you to monetize your digital assets in the form of video, in the form of art. And this is just an example, right? It's the knowledge, right? It's the knowledge. This is a comparison of YouTube against Google. You can see the bomb has 187,000 pages, 187,000 videos on YouTube, all talking about the bomb. I didn't even know the bomb existed until today. Did you know about the bomb, Peter?
Never heard of it.
Right.
No, never heard of it.
Right. Well, the algorithm basically is looking for tutorials. There are 500,000 tutorials on artificial intelligence on YouTube. There are 3.8 million videos about artificial intelligence on YouTube. That's what Search Triggers is telling us. When I do a comparison of Google against Bing, you can now see the different AIs and their cultural distinctions. Google is more concerned with stocks, technology solutions, movies, definitions, versus machine learning is the first thing that was relevant to me, because I understand what machine learning is, and I tried to explain it to you simply today. But when you go to Bing, which is the second largest AI company, I would say, in the world, it powered the Olympics, after all, right? Remember those drones at the Olympics at night,
Yep.
right? Well, that big data says, well, we think what's relevant to artificial intelligence is Wikipedia. Interesting. Why would they say that? Search, scholarly articles, different types of artificial intelligence areas of, I'm going to hide the actual query here for a second. Explained, forms, today, types. Okay. This is a different AI that's more concerned with, in my experience, it really has more to do with categorization, where Google has more to do with popularity. And the Bing universe accounts for approximately 20%. of the search volume traffic globally compared to the Google and its properties, right? Now the question becomes, what's better? Do you want to stick with the 80% of the popular vote, or do you want the 20% of the niches, right? Like, look at this one right here. Different types of artificial intelligence only has 16 pages on the entire internet. No one's even made a YouTube video on that. Let me go run that search right now. I'm going to go run that search on YouTube. Different types of artificial intelligence, right? You've only got 5 other videos to compete with. Different types of learning in artificial intelligence. You only have 1 other video to compete with, and there's that video. Supervised, unsupervised, and reinforcement learning. Pretty cool stuff, huh, Peter?
Yep, very interesting.
So now the question becomes, is more better, or is more refined better? Is more relevant better, or is less relevant and reaching a broader audience better? And what does even the word better mean? How do we define better? AI would tell you, as soon as we define what better is, AI will break it down and come up with something better than better. And that's what we will open up the audience. If you have any questions about any of this discussion, please let us know. I mean, most people, Vic, say, well, Vic, where do I get SociSnap? Vic, where do I buy search triggers? Well, it's kind of obvious. You go to searchtriggers.com, you go to SociSnap.com, or get back to the person who sent you to this video and ask them. But here's the thing, Peter, and this is the challenge. The better we get at what we do, the smaller our audience will be. The better we get at what we do, the smaller our audience will be. And that's a challenge, Peter. That's a challenge. I'm not sure if there's a solution for it. Maybe we can find balance. Let me ask you, what do you think, Peter?
Well, that's what I was hinting at way back when we started an hour and a half ago, was to sort in people or sort out people, right? Or a combination of both. So when you're saying that the better we get at it means we're going to be sorting out the people that are not interested, thus by default creating less people, but more qualified people to watch or listen or do whatever we're doing.
Exactly. So if you're watching us anywhere on the world, in any of these 8 channels that we're broadcasting on right now, please write something. That's a seed thought that will cause us to go into another conversation for the next 5 minutes. Peter, actually, you have some time. You're driving, right? You're driving to Florida.
Yeah.
But I like to keep these about an hour and a half on Mondays so we can actually have this conversation. But, you know, we've had these Monday night calls for a while now. And what's nice about, as we move this over to YouTube and Facebook as a live stream, we now can actually get real-time feedback from people. We can actually have people say things, you know, like Liz saying, thank you for giving us your time. I appreciate what you and Victor provide for us. It's valuable information. Well, I want to ask the question, why? Why is it valuable information? Is it going to make you money? Well, it's probably going to make you less money. Is it going to make you smarter? Well, it's actually going to make you smarter, but you'll think you're less smart. Is it going to help you in some way? Yes, it will help you, but it'll give the appearance that it's not helping you. And that's the challenge, I think, when it comes down to these concepts. These are deep thoughts. They're very, very deep thoughts. This is not what most people are thinking about. We started off with a very simple idea. What stock should I buy in AI? And I already told you, NVIDIA. Lots of people agree NVIDIA is the best. But guess what? If everyone starts buying NVIDIA stock, the value is going to go down, right? Because more and more people come in. How does NVIDIA make more money? Through acquisitions and growing its value. Well, value. I'm not an expert on the stock market. Maybe, Peter, do you know about the stock market? A little bit?
I know somewhat, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's all supply and demand, right? When something is hot, which means that people believe the future of that company is worth more than its present value, that's when the stock rises. When people think, oh no, it's going to tank, it's going to be gone, there's something wrong here. Like when you see scandals with founders of big companies, you see that they lost $100 million in valuation overnight because of one scandal, because people lost faith, right? It's a bet on the future. It's a bet on the future. So let's go look at what did Raymond Kurzweil bet? Yeah. Makes authenticity that much more important. That was a comment. Okay, so authenticity. Do we even know what the word authenticity is? I would say we probably don't even know what it is. Let's find out. Peter, let me ask you a binary decision. Do you prefer Google and YouTube, or a comparison of Google, YouTube, Google and Bing?
Probably Google and Bing.
Okay, so let's go to Google and Bing. And let's go to a comparison of all the web with the keyword authenticity. What does the world believe to be true about authenticity? And this really comes down to this thought of definition, okay? According to Google, the definition of authenticity is all important. Authenticity, definition in the Cambridge English Dictionary, the quality of being real or true. Many people now question the authenticity of his claims. Ensure guarantee authenticity. Digital signatures ensure the authenticity of your documents. Check, verify its authenticity. They showed the documents to several experts to verify their authenticity. Okay, so if I sell you a video, and this video, I say, you know what? This is the authentic piano video of me playing the piano on such and such a day with computer graphics, and there's only one of them available of this song. What would you pay for it? Right? I can certify its authenticity that this is the only one. It's digitally signed. And you can actually buy this video on an auction. And yes, I will be doing that someday. I'm actually talking with people that have an interest in my music, and they love that idea of selling authentically, digitally created original music with visuals. All right. Let's talk about Bing. What does Bing consider irrelevant? Well, it goes back to authenticity, and the only word here that's kind of off the mark is tourism. I didn't even know that it was associated with tourism. Authenticity in tourism, such as theorists as McCannell, let me actually... McCannell and Cohen in 1973 state that tourism is a modern quest for authenticity. Western tourists are looking for a sense of authenticity lacking in their home life abroad. Hosts provide this by creating authentic seeming presentations of their own culture. Wow, this is interesting. Do you know that, Peter?
No, I didn't know that.
So when we travel, when we go to ancient Greece, like I've been to Jerusalem, right? Why did I go to Jerusalem? Well, I was always a Christian ever since I was like born, right? I was born into this culture. I was baptized. You know, I had water poured on my head. I screamed bloody murder when that happened, right? It was cold, you know? I don't know if I'm remembering it or I'm remembering a movie where I did that, but see, we want to go back to our roots. We want to go and answer those why questions. So when I went to Jerusalem, I wondered why. Why is the world the way it is? Why did this book influence the world so much? Why is this the best-selling book of all time? How did they get so many people to buy this book? Those were my questions. And when I went to the Wailing Wall, I was kind of spellbound. When I went into the Dome of the Rock, I was kind of shocked. You know, did you know you cannot hold your hands with your partner at these sacred places? It's considered a sacrilege. I did not know that. I was corrected very quickly by an armed guard. You know, this idea of authenticity in tourism is really kind of an interesting spin. So if we take this idea of authenticity in tourism, and now we move over back to YouTube. So what are we doing? We're taking AI neural networks from Bing, and we are now running them in YouTube. That's what we're doing. And there really is nothing more in YouTube other than 6 videos about authenticity in tourism. That's interesting. Very, very interesting. That's a whole niche. If someone has a travel channel and they're looking for a niche, they could talk about the word authenticity when it comes to tourism, and they would have literally no competition. Because no one's even thought of that. Thank you, Superfan. Making authenticity that much more important. All right, Peter, last one's on you. Let me see if I have shared all my screens that I have open. Yeah, if you go to our search engine, EarthGrid, and you type in Google AI, you can look at all of the cool stuff that Google has. Google.org issued an open call to organizations around the world to submit their ideas for how they would use AI to help address societal challenges. Meet the 20 organizations we selected to support. An introduction to federated learning. I love this. It's beautiful. Our vision, advancing AI to everyone. And they also have a processor that they're working on. Apple's not the only company making processors. Intel, Apple, and Google are now coming out with processors. AI in action. It's really beautiful stuff. Leading with research. Start building, learning new skills. Building responsible AI for everyone. You can see the hallmark of Ray Kurzweil's work on this page because he was one of the few people that asked the question, should we be doing this? Should we be building AI at all? And how do we make sure that AI doesn't rule us out as irrelevant? So that's our show for today. I'm just going to bring up a few more screens. Is your company AI ready? Four lessons on designing responsible ethical technology. That's the big conversation that we need to have, is about the ethics of AI. Because when a machine can write its own rules, you have to make sure that you set limits on the rules that machine is able to enforce. And that's where the whole ethical conversation comes in. Are you with me still, Peter, or shall I adjourn this?
Just a minute or two, and that's it. Okay.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about money. AI systems are estimated to reach 97.9 billion in 2023, up from 37 billion in 2019. So there's lots of money being poured into AI. And lots of people are buying it. Like I said, if you do a search for artificial intelligence stocks to buy, you will find that. If you want a piece of this, you want to click on this little button that says, do you want a piece? And that will bring us into the human intelligence of a platform called Builderall, where you can share your message with the world and tell the AI, hey, here's what I want to express. Here's what I want to say. Here are the people I want to say it to, and present it in such a way that the AI will be able to read it, interpret it, and do something with it. So that's our show for today. Thanks for watching. Peter, any final thoughts before we adjourn?
Yeah, no, everybody, thank you so much for watching, and for me, at least, listening. As I travel down through South Carolina to Florida. But very, very interesting topic, and almost mind-blowing if you think about it. You know, so it's going to take you a while to assimilate all of these concepts and ideas, but we just really wanted to whet your appetite and make sure you're looking for the next broadcast that we do, because we'll be exploring these topics even further. So back to you, Vic.
All right. So what would be one question that we could ask for our next broadcast, which is scheduled for tomorrow? Then we have another one on Thursday. Same time, 1 p.m. Pacific, YouTube time. What would be one question that you would want answered? Back to you, Peter. In the context of AI.
Well, the biggest thing that our audience wants to know is, how do I generate leads? You know, they're in the BizOps space, the affiliate marketing space, the network marketing space. They want to, how does this apply to them? This is good to know, but how does this apply to them, and what can they use it? How can they use it now to make money now for them?
Well, there's good news and bad news. The bad news is it's actually not good for making leads. It's good for disqualifying your leads. You have to start thinking differently. So acquiring leads is the rule set that you've been operating on. Okay, so if you give that to an AI system and you say, I want more leads, basically what you're telling the AI system is that you want more diversity, right? And less specificity. AIs don't like that. AIs say, okay, well, what do you really want? I guess the real question is, you don't really want the leads. What you want is the money. Well, why do you want the money? What piece of the pie do you want? Well, why do you need the money? Right? Oh, I need the money to pay my mortgage. Well, why do you need to pay your mortgage? Oh, because if I don't, then I'm going to be moved out. Well, okay, so then, you know, you have to think a little bit deeper, and that comes down to personal development and leadership, right? If your answer to those questions is, I need more money because I want to inspire more people, guess what? The universe might start supporting your vision. But if your reason for having more money is because I want to buy a boat or a yacht, right? Well, okay, so why? Why AI is the topic for today. So why you want more leads? I would say you actually don't want more leads. You actually are operating from the wrong, you gave the wrong rule. Right? The rule you're giving to the AI is the wrong question. It's not the right question. So that kind of becomes a debate. Right? If you want more leads, you're still believing that more leads will make you more business, whereas less leads will make you more business if they're the right leads. That's the easiest way for me to say it. You want fewer leads, but more refined leads. Once you can appreciate and accept that, that's when the piece of pie that you're seeing on the screen will open its doors to you. Cool? What do you think, Peter?
All right, let's do it.
All right, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Take care and aloha. All right, so that was Peter live with us tonight. If you have any final questions, please put them in the chat. To conclude, what stocks to buy? I would say do your research, right? And we will see you in the next one. I'm going to share a music video in the meantime for about 15 minutes so you guys can enjoy, and we'll close it out.